Welcome to Putting It Together, the podcast that goes through the entire body of work of Stephen Sondheim, show by show and song by song. My name is Kyle Marshall, your self-described Sondheim expert. This is essentially like a bonus episode here for people. We are going back in time because guest Christine Chen reached out to me and mentioned the fact that she would like to go into an in-depth discussion about Dainty June and her Farmboys, which is obviously a song that probably not a whole lot of people are clamoring for. But interestingly enough, I thought we got into a really interesting discussion about this song, going way, way back in time to kind of re-talk about Gypsy. It just goes to show you that you can never really tell what song is going to allow for really deep discussion, but maybe that's just the beauty of Sondheim and his work in total. Anyways, let's just jump into this conversation. Christine Chen, thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Thank you so much for indulging me in talking about the song. I am so excited to get into it.
I can only imagine people opening up whatever app they use to listen to podcasts in, and it's like, ooh, another episode of Putting It Together. Yes, Dainty June and her Farmboys, the song that everyone has been clamoring for a second look at.
You just know that there's going to be at least one person out there who's like, oh, finally they've gotten to this song. And that would have been me if I didn't ask to come on and do that.
Longtime listeners may recall, if we go way, way back into our Gypsy season, which I believe was in 2018 is when I did that, into 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So it was like a bit of time ago. I touched on this song like very briefly in an episode I think I called Trunk Songs and Other Tunes or something like that. I think I threw it into that kind of discussion of just like, we're just going to get through this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. That being said, I think that there is some interesting things musically, and I know that you had brought up before we started recording some things thematically that are interesting about this song. So we're going to jump into it and talk a little bit more about this. Can you maybe just reiterate, I have to remember, you were part of the Gypsy season originally, were you not?
No, I was not, I don't think.
Funny Thing was the first
Yeah,
one
that
you
was the
came
first
on
time.
for. Okay. So what is your overall impression, thoughts, feelings about Gypsy as a show?
I mean, I think it's just a really fascinating show. You know, like everyone talks about it as like Rose being the Hamlet of musical theater and everything. And I totally agree with a lot of that. And yeah, it's so interesting to see different portrayals of Gypsy too, because, you know, it's one of those shows where you can do the same kind of things, but just based on the actor, there's so much going on in their heads and like trying to figure out like what angle they're coming at it from, like how much of it is her being a mother who just wants the best for her children, how much of it is her letting her own narcissism take over like what she wants for her children, and how much of it is maybe something in between.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like a dumb thing, I guess, to say, because I feel like it's so obvious for a lot of people. But Gypsy itself, I think, is such a rich text. There is new things that you can like pull out of it, depending on who the director is, who the actors you've assembled, how you want to approach the material. Like, there is a lot to it. So I think that there is a reason why it gets revived all the time. That is the joke. It's been 5 years. Why not do another production of Gypsy? Which is not altogether untrue. But there is a reason, I think, why people are so enthusiastic to keep coming back to this material.
And I think, like, in media in the past few years, generational trauma has really been having a moment. And the whole idea of, like, we want our parents to apologize to us. And that's kind of, like, what Gypsy is at the end of the day, too. Is just, like, you know, what are the things that our parents do to us that affect our lives, and then at the end, how can we like sort of reconcile that with still having a relationship with our parents? Obviously not to necessarily the extent of Rose and Louise, but you know, some shades of that.
My mother made me dress up in a cow outfit every week to put the like plant your flag. Like, who is your Gypsy? Like, which production is like, this is the one that I prefer or go back to the most?
I mean, I think Patti LuPone's has kind of been standard for me. Since when I first came to Gypsy, I think that was the one that like everyone had kind of widely agreed was the best, and that was the one that I listened to the most. Recently, I've been trying to go back and listen to the other albums. I really like the Angela Lansbury album, which I don't think that gets enough due. As
a little side note, there's a great video you can find online of Angela Lansbury being shown one of her performances. I want to say it was her last performance, but I actually don't know if that's true. But at least one of her performances of Rose's turn during that production, and her kind of like tearing up. She's like, "Oh, I guess I was good." of her being shown like her
Wow.
performance
I'll
of
have
that
to
song.
look that up. Yeah. I did see this most recent revival with Audra McDonald 3 times, and just honestly, I thought the overall revival was fine, but Audra was just such a force of nature. Like that was just
Right.
an incredible. It's one of those performances where you're like, it's definitely like a history making performance, but it's not something that I think people will necessarily replicate in future productions of Gypsy. You
Sure.
know, sometimes people
Yeah.
make a choice and then all of a sudden that's like the choice for all future productions. I don't think it'll be like that for Rose, but I think Audra is such a singular performer, and watching her do that show is just like an experience to behold.
When I spoke to the music director, Andy Einhorn, here a few weeks ago, he mentioned how much like Audra had like been workshopping that role in her own concerts, and then even when it got to Broadway, how different it was from when it started to how it
Yeah.
ended. I don't know if you noticed that at all. Like, was there any
I
evolution of
think
her performance that
so.
you noticed?
I saw it first in previews, and I still thought she was incredible. But when I saw it later in the show, I think she found more of where her voice sits with the songs. And like she was able to deploy that more effectively and to just feel like she had sort of found a bit of a sweet spot, because she does tap into her soprano register for parts of it, and she does do sort of like a mixed belt kind of thing, and I think it just like sounded more natural and like more like dramaturgically, you know, like she uses her soprano in very specific moments of the show, like especially when she's getting more desperate or more like in Everything's Coming Up Roses and stuff. It adds to that yearning and desperation and drive of the character, I think. So she doesn't always sound like pretty, or doesn't always sound like a Patti LuPone style belt, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like she is acting
Yeah.
through song. Like that's basically what she is doing, which I normally am the proponent of. That is like, it is musical theater.
Right.
We want to have you. It's not just meant to be beautifully sung. That's cool when that happens as well, or great when that happens as well. When I was talking with Andy, though, I mean, I did mention this too, on how that Tony's performance of Audra was a bit divisive. It kind of either really worked for you or it really
Right.
didn't, was kind of like the two reactions I saw. And I will just say again, speaking just and only for myself, and having not seen the actual production on stage, the album really works for me. When you listen to Audra like go from the beginning to where she ends, it's like there's a complete through line, there's a complete arc of her character. So when she hits that breakdown moment, it's like, this is a woman losing her
Right,
mind
yeah.
at this moment, and it's just like, it totally works for me.
Yeah, and it's funny because listening to her Rose's Turn on the album, I feel like it almost makes all the other versions of Rose's Turn boring in comparison. Like she's doing so much in that number, and you can just like you almost viscerally feel everything she's going through, and that, you know, that really speaks to Audra as an actor. But I've also talked to other people who think she's overacting. So you know, like I guess it depends which way it falls. But yeah, I really enjoyed.
Hey, I have like the super like unpopular opinion is that I love the Bernadette Peters version of it, but she does a similar thing where she's very much, she's still singing well, but is acting through song too. So there's she's not trying to be as pretty
Right.
throughout the entire thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do enjoy like listening to especially her songs with Herbie, like the You'll Never Get Away From Me, and like those songs that are like slightly on the softer side, I think Bernadette Peters handles really well.
However, we are here to talk about Dainty June and her Farmboys, who oh my goodness, who played June in this most recent
Jordan
production?
Tyson. Yeah.
Jordan Tyson, that's right. Who also does a great job,
Yeah.
I thought, throughout. Kind of, I always find that June as a character kind of gets forgotten / short shrift, because which is kind of how the whole show is structured. Honestly, it really is supposed to be Louise and Rose. Like this is the two characters we're really following, but June especially gets really sidelined.
Well,
for
yeah,
most of
it's
it.
funny because she's such a big presence in Act 1, and then she, you know, runs away and you immediately forget about her for Act 2. It's like, you know,
Right.
but she's still almost hanging over everything with like the Let Me Entertain You number, which I know that one you've talked about. And obviously just like the way that Rose has preferred June for so long over Louise. But it's like I never really hear like, you know, people rank their top Louises, people rank their top Roses. I never really hear people talk about June performances. And I guess part of it is like her big song is probably this, the Farmboys number.
Yeah.
I mean, she gets If Mama Was Married.
Yeah, this one and Broadway, which it goes into,
Yeah.
right, is just like, that's kind of her standout
Right.
moment.
So it's like she doesn't really have like a real heartfelt song or moment, really. And it's kind of just up to the actress to do something with the role.
If you can recall, what is happening like right before this song starts?
So I think they've made it to the Orpheum circuit at this point, and they are managing to, play presumably successful shows. The song right before this was You'll Never Get Away From Me, which is Rose and Herbie having a moment, like talking about their relationship, and she still reiterates how much she wants her girls to be a star, mostly June, really. And so they are auditioning for Mr. Grantziger for his theater, and he will, I guess, decide whether or not to get them to the next level and keep continuing their sort of trajectory there.
And the rug pull here, I mean, to spoil the joke, I guess, a little bit, if somehow you're listening to this episode having never watched the show, which would be an interesting choice, is that you're kind of led to believe that they have a new act under their belt, which we'll soon find out is like not really true. It's really the same structure. Some of the same lyrics are even in this. But within the fiction of the show, Rose has actually rewritten this, or has written some of this song for the girls to perform. Just to go through this, we'll start with the opening where the Farmboys come out and yell, "Extra, extra, hey, look at the headline, historical news is being made. Extra, extra, they're drawing a red line around the biggest scoop of the decade. A barrel of charm, a fabulous thrill, the biggest little headline in vaudeville. Presenting, in person, that 5'2" bundle of dynamite, Dainty, June."
Extra, extra, hey, look at the headline, historical news is being made. Extra, extra, they're drawing a red line around the biggest scoop of the decade. A barrel of charm, a fabulous thrill, the biggest little headline in vaudeville. Presenting, in person, that 5'2" bundle of dynamite, Dainty June.
It was actually only recently, I think. I didn't go and re-listen to that old episode, so I don't think I even brought it up. I doubt I did. It's actually really always bothered me the way that they pronounce decade as decade. However,
Yes!
apparently,
Okay, great.
apparently that is period accurate. That is how they used to pronounce it, or potentially could have pronounced it. So sometimes playing a little fast and loose there with the rhyming scheme. It still bugs me though. It still kind of bugs me.
I always wondered about that because, everyone always talks about how well the scansion is with Sondheim lyrics and how he doesn't put false stresses. And I was like, that's always the one that comes to mind whenever people say that. So that's good to know because that has always bugged me too. And I feel like it wouldn't even be that crazy to just change it to decade rather than decade. But, I guess if that's a period accurate.
Yeah, because is it...
gotta give it to him on that.
It's not even rhyming with anything, is it?
It's rhyming with historical
Made.
news
There
is
we
being
go. I was
made.
trying to quickly... Okay, yeah. So, anyways, anything else you want to say about like this little opening bit of the Newsboys coming out? The Farmboys are coming out, not the
The
Newsboys.
Farmboys, who just suddenly have newspapers now, which is kind of calling back to what you said about we think that they have like a brand new act. Which is also funny because the way that this song actually opens is with like an excerpt from the Peer Gynt
right.
suite. And I guess it's to give you the feeling that, we're in a pastoral land now. This is a different number. And then all of a sudden you hear the like blaring like bump, bump, bump. And all of a sudden the like farm boys come out with
I just love the fact that she
newspapers
even tried
and,
to change the beginning point. Like, it's still they're still yelling extra, extra as if they're newsboys, but now they're farm boys. Like, so it doesn't really make sense that they're yelling extra, extra a bit.
Yeah. She's like, I've had this intro. Nothing's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Why change it? The other funny thing, I think, is it's written in the lyrics that it's 5'2" bundle of dynamite. I think there's one recording that changed it to 4'8", which I assume was to accommodate the actress.
Probably.
But I think it would also be really funny if they say 5'2" and the actress is like 5'10" or something.
Right.
Just because, you know, Rose keeps trying to make the girls younger. And there's that scene, I think, right after this song where a lady asks him like, "Oh, like how old are you really?" And she's like 9. And it's like, there's no way she's 9 years old.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing about this show too. If you've only ever listened to albums of it, I think sometimes people miss like just the book portions of Gypsy.
Yeah,
is so incredibly funny at moments that you miss some of like the best jokes if you've only listened to the music. Say what you want about Mr. Arthur Lawrence, who seemed like a terrible human being outside of his theater work. He nailed the assignment on this on this creation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it just seems like one of those like moments where like everything aligned perfectly with like Julie Stein having grown up doing sort of like being familiar with vaudeville songs and having all of these tunes ready, and then like Sondheim, you know, sort of getting a chance to play in the sandbox with them and everything.
I know it's like totally rose-colored glasses, but I just love that idea of just like, I'm a piano man. I come and make songs, and like I'm just gonna open up my trunk. It's like, how you gonna dust this thing off that I made 15 years ago, and it's like just tinkle around on the piano. There's something I just love about that idea.
Yeah, definitely.
As a side note, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. In the city I'm in, the International Film Festival is going to be starting here very soon, and I'm involved tangentially with that. But one of the new Richard Linklater films called Blue Moon is playing there, which is Lawrence Hart's kind of biography.
Right.
Which is a very sad tale, if you actually know anything about Lawrence Hart. So I'm excited to see that, just to kind of see that idea of just someone who's like, yeah, I write tunes. That's just what my job is. I just write tunes.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that. That's been on my list of like things to look out for. So I'm ready to hear about it.
If you need a really hot Richard Rodgers, you're going to be in for a treat, because it's Andrew Scott plays Richard Rodgers in that movie.
That's right. Oh man, that's exciting.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like this opening bit here with the Farmboys coming out. So June has her moment here. She goes, "Hello everybody, my name's June. What's yours?" And then, "I have a moo cow, a new cow, a true cow named Caroline." And of course it's Louise in the cow uniform, you have to know. And she goes like, "Moo moo moo. She's an extra special friend of mine. Moo 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 moo. I like everything about her fine. Moo 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 moo. She likes to moo in the moonlight when the moody moon appears. And when she moos in the moonlight, gosh, it's music to my ears. She's so musical."
Yeah, it's so funny when it's like done right, because it's just like, you know, this was the source of Rose's inspiration, was like, I have a cow. What do cows do? Cows moo. All right, what else has moo in it? Like, you can just sort of imagine her sort of writing this out. Just music, moonlight.
I really do love the aside of like, she's so musical. Like, she's so musical, sorry, is what we invoked her name again before we started recording. There is a bit of glee I would love to happen, because I think the person who would actually nail this song is Kristen Chenoweth. I think she would absolutely nail the comedy of this. And there's an idea that I have for like Sondheim's 100th birthday, that they have this star-studded event and Kristen Chenoweth comes out on stage and then sings this song. I think it'd be so funny.
I would love to see that. If anyone knows Kristen Chenoweth out there, please pitch it to her. Yeah. I think, so this song has sort of taken a hold of me in a way that I never expect. I think it's ridiculously catchy, for one, like for what it is, but also some of the lines, like, I specifically the "I have a moo cow, a new cow, a true cow," like it's so simple, but it sits so nicely on the ear and everything that it's It's just such a fun song.
Yeah, I mean, Julie
And-
Stein's music is so plucky in this type of thing, so it just like
Yeah.
flows so well.
Yeah, and of course, have to give a shout out to Laura Benanti for piloting the moo,
Yeah.
like
That
the
is her
low effort
thing.
moves.
I do her performance as Louise is great. I got to see her on stage do this, so like, I mean, I think I have that little special place in my heart for her performance anyways. But I do think it works the best when it is a Louise who is so disinterested in being there. Because I think it makes it so funny.
And it's actually like funny now listening back to the older versions where you have a really enthusiastic Louise and you're like, I don't know, is this really what you wanted to be doing with your life?
Right. I mean, I'm just so impressed by the fact that he does get so many like of those moo words. I feel like he hit upon this and was like, okay, what else has it? Moonlight, moody, moon.
And I think Jordan Tyson in particular as June, like, I don't know how to describe her voice other than that it like sizzles. Like she really goes for the she likes to moo in the moonlight. Like
Yeah.
she really puts that emphasis on there. And I think her portrayal in general is also one of the ones where June is like absolutely fucking fed up with everything she's been asked to do. Like she's been asked to play a 9-year-old for the last like 10 years of her
True,
life.
yeah.
And I think that does come through a bit in like she's like overacting on purpose kind of for this number, and I think you can kind of hear that in the album as well.
I think it's also important as well. I mean, this is all based on real people, and this June is June Havoc. Like she becomes a pretty
Right.
famous actor of her time, and so I think it's also great that she is always shown to be talented. Like June is talented at what she does. She's just more naturally like extroverted than what her sister is.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this next stanza is like my favorite thing in this entire song, and we'll talk about why in a second. But she goes, she loves a man cow, a tan cow, who can cow her with a glance. Moo moo. When he winks at her, she starts to dance. Moo moo. It's what grown-ups call a real romance. Moo moo. But if we moved to the city, or we settled by the shore, she'd make the move, 'cause she loves me more.
Musical, she loves a man cow, a tan cow who can cow her with a glance. When he winks at her, she starts to dance. It's what grown-ups call a real romance. But if we move to the city, or we settle by the shore, she'd make the move, 'cause she loves me more.
Is your favorite part the man cow, tan cow, can
Yeah,
cow?
I love it so much. I like.
Yeah.
First off, I like that she says "man cow" because it's like no one has ever said that in ever. But I like what always tickles me with any type of lyricist is using a word in both of its tenses or in its multiple tenses. And this one is like it's been like loves a man cow, a tan cow. So we're using nouns who can cow, and now we're using the cow as the verb that it can be in this thing, and it totally works. And it's like, whoa, we're still using this with lyrical dexterity in what is ostensibly a throwaway song in this show.
Right. Yeah, it just like perks your ear a little, and that's always the part that really gets stuck in my head. Especially after you set the sort of pattern with moo cow, new cow, true cow. You're like, all right, these are all cows, and they all have a descriptor. And all of a sudden, like can cow, it's like, wait a second,
Yeah.
like what kind of cow is that? It's not a cow.
It does kind of like reinvest you into the lyrics if you're listening along.
Yeah. Because, I can understand how people would be like, oh, this is some dumb song. And you're like, wait a second, that was kind of cool there.
It's kind of it happens honestly occasionally in children's films where occasionally you'll get like the music number that up until now it's can be kind of silly and dumb, and it's like, well, wait a second, those are actually some pretty good lyrics you're throwing into this kids film.
I think this is probably also a good part to mention like what I think the overall quote unquote purpose of this song is. And I don't know how obvious this is to people, like if this is a commonly held belief, but if we consider that this is the song that Rose wrote for her kids, it's kind of a whole like wish fulfillment thing for Rose of like, if we see Rose as the cow, it's like she loves a man cow who can cow her with a glance. but if we move to the city, she'd make the move because she loves me more. It's like she has mentioned multiple times throughout the show, she would always choose her children over pretty much anything, maybe even to their detriment. And it kind of sets up this whole sort of recurring allegory of the cow throughout the show. And it's like watching the show again, I was surprised at how often they mention the cow. Like they bring the cow to the dressing room when they're right before the strip at the burlesque theater. The cow is still brought to Louise's dressing room at the end when she tries to like nail the cow's head to the door. And it just like this whole idea of like Rose following Louise around and trying to make sure that she's still in Louise's life. And obviously like the cow as like the milk giver and all that extra thing, you know.
Almost like a cash cow, one might say. Yes. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to that. This is actually, at some point I really should read Gypsy Rose Lee's biography. That is, you still can go and buy a copy. Although I've heard that a lot of that is exaggerated / maybe even completely made up. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But I don't know if this is actually based on a real thing where she actually had to wear a cow outfit, or if that was just invented for this show type of thing. But you can kind of understand it, like at least the arc of Louise is like you start with a character who is completely covered up and then eventually gets known for taking things off. So it's like you kind of go through the entire arc through the show.
Yeah, that's true. And though I do wonder, at least in the most recent production, you see Louise later on wearing like the pants for the cow, but it's not really all that clear that she like was in the cow. Like you'd really have to be paying attention to the costumes to notice it. And I don't know if maybe other productions made that more clear, but you know, like I could also totally see how people might miss that she was the one in the cow to begin with. Yeah, that maybe is something to sort of emphasize as well.
So there, depending on what recording you're listening to, you might hear a bit of this book scene that happens in between this. The secretary, I believe it is, from Mr. Grazinger is like, okay, it's time to go. Kind of is trying to shoo them off the stage. And then Rose is like, and hit it, going to like the big finish. The Farmboys jump into this song called Broadway, is sometimes how it's referred to. And they go, Broadway, Broadway, we miss it so. We're leaving soon and taking June to star her in a show. Bright lights, white lights, rhythm and romance. The train is late, so while we wait, we're going to do a little dance.
Broadway, Broadway, we missed it so. We're leaving soon and taking June to star her in a show. Bright lights, white lights, rhythm and romance. The train is late, so while we wait, we're gonna do a little dance.
I don't know why I find it so funny of when someone says, and now I'm going to dance, and then they just like break out into a dance.
Well, it's funny because in Sondheim's book, right after that, it's just which they do.
Yeah, that's right.
And, so it's also just funny because it's so obviously just for a set change. Like the train is late because they need time to change the set to like a train set. And then it's like, I think it should also be mentioned, the Farmboys, when they come out again, they're dressed in like tuxes and they have the cane and everything. It's like unclear if they're meant to still be Farmboys at this point, if they are, you know, big Broadway producers. Right. Like Rose wasn't really concerned with the dramaturgy part of it all. So, you know, they're just here to dance. That's the only part.
It's same tune that we're still, adhering to type of thing. So, like, I think that's kind of the recurring thing you're supposed to pick up on here, too, is, like, Rose had, like, an idea. I don't even know if I could say it was a good idea at the beginning, but definitely an idea that she has never really deviated from. It's like, the structure works, and so I'm always going to just do this structure. Right. And I'll try and cram in any other type of, like, character into this structure. But this is where June basically gets her solo. So the dance happens, train whistle blows, and she's like, wait, stop the train, stop the music, stop everything.
Oh, hold on. You skipped a section, I think.
I did. Sorry. You're totally right.
Yeah.
They do their little dance. Then June goes, Broadway, Broadway, how great you are. I'll leave the farm with all its charm to be a Broadway star. Bright lights, white lights, where the neons glow. My bag is packed, I've got my act, so all aboard, come on, let's go. And then the train whistle goes.
Broadway, Broadway, how great you are. I'll leave the farm with all its charm to be a Broadway star. Bright lights, white lights, where the neons glow. My bag is packed, I've got my act, so all aboard, come on, let's go. Let's go!
Yeah, well, so she comes out in this like big new white fur coat kind of thing, and it does seem like, you know, again, this is the wish fulfillment fantasy of June is making it big on Broadway. She's ready to go, and they're climbing aboard this train, and actually it's really funny when the train starts quote unquote moving, and you sometimes get like a little audio clip of Rose being like, "It's a train!" And it's
Yeah,
just
right,
like,
right.
yeah, okay, we got that.
Have you ever watched the pro shot from London with Imelda Staunton?
Yeah.
She does a good job too, but yeah, she's...
Yeah. And it's always like Herbie trying to like pull her off, being like, "No, don't get involved."
I like the little train thing that they have on that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is of course like the same melody and stuff that we heard before. There is that emphasis of like bright lights, white lights, symbolizing Broadway more than anything here. I really love the all aboard, come on, let's go. I think that hits super well within the melody too.
It's also funny how she says, "My bag is packed, I've got my act." And it's like, does she really have an act that would make it to Broadway? Like,
She's got Farmboys, she's got Newsboys, she can do anything she wants.
yeah. She's got all the boys.
Yeah. So then we have the train whistle blow, and then she goes, "Wait, stop the train, stop the music, stop everything. I can't go to Broadway with you." And then they have like, "Why not, Dainty June? Because I'm staying here with Carolyn, my favorite cow. Yay!" And then they play Stars and Stripes Forever, and that's the end of the song.
Never let it be said that Rose wasn't patriotic.
Stop the train! Stop everything! I can't go to Broadway with you!
Why not, Dainty June?
Because everything in life that truly matters is right here. What care I for tinsel or glamour when I have friendship and true love? I'm staying here with Caroline!
It's just like her go-to send-off for
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah, just like something's happening, just play Stars and Stripes. And they had like, I think in most productions they have the same choreography as the first time they do it too.
Yeah.
It's just like the marching in place, like saluting and everything has nothing to do with, you know, anything else in the show. Rose loves the country, I guess.
I guess so.
She's sure seen a lot of it.
I mean, I often think about that I mean, this is a slightly different thing because she's trying to change the act, but like basically keeping things the same. For Broadway actors who stick with the same show for like multiple years, for me at a certain point we'd be like, oh my goodness, I'm going to do this like for the 900th time. There was a recent video I saw of I'm terribly sorry, I cannot remember the woman's name, who's been with The Lion King for 25 years and had her final performance. I'm like, I would have gone insane probably if I had done the same show 8 days a week or 8 times a week for 25 years. Like it's a lengthy time to put into that.
Well, did you see I think it was on This American Life, they did a feature on the
musicians
Phantom of the Opera
of
Orchestra.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
Same thing. So it's like, yeah, I'm only going to do this for a year, and then they end up doing it for 30 plus years. I'm like, I okay.
But it was just funny how they talked about like, they were like, every day, it feels like they're in Groundhog Day. Every day is just like a repeat of the previous day. There's always someone that coughs at like the exact same moment.
Right.
There's always someone that's like flat in the exact same note. And it was like, oh, there goes Carl again doing that, you know, like, and it just feels like they're in like kind of a Twilight Zone.
I guess there's something to that,
because
because I guess in another way, like you start to have a little bit of power over audience performance, whatever. Because I know that there's certain stand-up comedians I've heard talk about it when they are like perfecting their act. Mostly I'm talking about the people who like make a new act for the year, rehearse it, and then like just do that for the year, and then like go in and change it again. There gets to a point where you're almost having this out of body experience where it's like, oh, I have to do that thing later tonight. So like you're just going through the motions and you're thinking about other things while you're still performing it. But also it's like, oh, I didn't get a laugh here this tonight. What happened? Right. People always laugh at this point. So what did I do wrong? So there's something to that.
But also for this section of the song, the whole idea of her being like, oh, actually, I don't need Broadway. I just need my favorite cow, Caroline.
It comes out of nowhere. It makes no sense, but yeah.
Yeah. But then like going back to like, if Caroline is Rose, essentially, that sort of plays into the scene that comes after this, which is that Grant Ziegler does like June. He says, I think June is actually talented and she just needs some acting classes and, she could be a star, but I don't want the mother involved because, she keeps pointing out things like that it's a train and he wants to basically take her away. And June is like, oh my God, this is my big shot to finally get to do something new. And Rose is the one that's like, absolutely not. She's my daughter. Like, how could you not let me see her or, like be with her and anything? And so it sort of like contrasts nicely, I think, with the end of this song, where supposedly in this like ideal world for Rose, June would get the chance. It's like enough to get the chance to be on Broadway that would like prove that she is like talented at that level, but ultimately she would still choose Rose over everything else, which is kind of what I guess Rose has been doing for her too. Like she's been sort of pushing off Herbie because she's been like, my girls come first, and she sort of expects that reciprocation. I think that's also sort of the difference of like parent-child relationships is like, the parents sort of do everything for the child, and I guess supposedly the hope is that the child can then do that for someone else, but not necessarily return it.
I think that maybe like the interesting subtext here is that she is seeing herself as the cow, right? Yeah. It's like, of course my children would choose to stay with me instead of going off there. Like this is what I want for them, but at the same time, they're going to be loyal to me ultimately, which is why she feels like it's such a betrayal when June doesn't decide to do it that way. She runs off and does her own thing.
And also because Rose has sort of had a history of abandonment by her own mother. And so she probably thought that like, if I have children, like, of course, like I'm going to be there for them because I don't want them to be abandoned, but I want them to be there for me in the same way, which, you can't really control your children like that, I guess, especially not in the way that Rose does it and expect them to always want to be there. But it is like it is sad in a way because Rose, and this really comes out at the end, is like she just wanted to be seen. She wanted to have someone that would choose her. She says, why does everybody walk out on me? Which, like we can kind of tell as an audience member, like, oh yeah, there might be some things that are leading to that. But it is like she wants this idea of like her and her children are always together, even in the idea of like Rose Louise and her daughter that they say at the end. So yeah, I think this does reveal like kind of a lot about Rose, which you might not expect from just the cow song.
Right.
Everything.
It's true. The last thing I was just going to mention was with that playing of Stars and Stripes at the end and like doing like the Americana, like rah type of thing, it does feel very period accurate to the amount of times you watch like a movie from like the 30s and 40s. And it's just like maybe something very terrible has happened. It basically gets wrapped up by a character nearly just turning to the camera and being like, but at least we're Americans. and that's like the wrap up of the story. And as the Canadian on this podcast, I'm just like, all right, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's also speaks to the time period, like you mentioned, but I'm sure with like, I don't remember exactly when this is set, but somewhere around the Depression and World War II. Yeah. Because they mentioned people not going to vaudeville. So I'm sure like there's a lot of patriotic spirit in the air. And it's kind of like, if you think about just rallying everybody to kind of like, yeah, we're going to win this war kind of thing, then that would also make sense of just like, okay, even if you didn't like the rest of the act, hey, we're going to win the war and we're Americans. Right. So kind of brings it back to that.
Any other last thoughts you have about this song?
Not really. I think that's about it. But, I think it's a great song. And I'm glad that June gets something to do in the show.
I will say, yeah, it is a bit of a banger. in the first act, right? It's just like, I keep saying it's a bit of a throwaway, which is not altogether untrue, but it is just it's a fun melodic song to show off whichever actress is playing June, her performance skills and stuff like that. But there is also, if you really want to dig into it a little bit, a revelation of what's going on with Rose and how she feels about her children and the connection to them.
Yeah. And I think she has a line later in the show, and she's like, if the cow goes, I go.
Yeah.
And so it just like, she feels very attached to this.
Is it if Mama Was Married? Is that the one that comes right after this?
Yeah. And that's when they're deliberating with Grant Ziegler and stuff. Or like, she's trying to argue with Grant Ziegler, and Herbie takes her off. And June kind of talks about all she wants to do is not perform anymore. And Louise talks about how she just wants a lot of animals.
That's right. Well, Christine, thank you so much for joining me here today. If people wanted to stay in contact with you online, what is the best way for them to do so?
Haven't been super active on my personal socials, but you can find me on Twitter at Across the Arch. And I have a Broadway podcast called Bottomless Broadway, which you can also find on Instagram at Bottomless Bway. And we've sort of wrapped up our season for this year, but normally we do January to June, so keep an eye out for the next season or listen to our past episodes.
Yeah, that'd be great. I keep referencing what we were talking about before we started recording, but we were talking about, Queen of Versailles. There's some other Ragtime is being revived. Is there, any other shows that you're looking forward to checking out this upcoming Broadway season that's been announced? I know there's always going to be stuff that we don't know necessarily yet, but...
Yeah, I guess like not a lot of the musicals have been announced yet, so that's been kind of waiting on what else is coming in. I am curious about Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York. I've heard pretty good things about that as kind of like a rom-com. I'm like cautiously excited for Chess.
Right.
Chess is one of those albums that we actually did it in high school, and so I've been sort of obsessed with the music ever since. But it's still Chess, and
I don't know it very well. Like, I know a lot of the songs from Chess, but I've never seen a production of Chess. But everyone who does know it very well tells me it's basically like Merrily We Roll Along, which is like, song's great, book terrible. But it's like
yeah. Yeah, and I to be honest, I don't have a lot of hope for this version being the one to fix it like the most recent Merrily revival was, but I am willing to be pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah.
But I think the songs will be sung very well, so at the very least, I think it's worth it.
At least all we can hope for at
Yeah.
this point. Great. Well, thank you once again.
All right, thank you so much.